Monster Hunter Rise is the best game that will come out this year. Okay, that's not entirely true. We do live in a world with Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 2, Bush Rescue HD, so Rise is a distant second. All joking aside, this is setting up to be my absolute game of the year, and I cannot wait to talk about it. Monster Hunter is one of the most difficult franchises out there. A game like Dark Souls is difficult because of how waves of enemies can constantly overwhelm you. Any small encounter has the potential to completely one-shot you, and the physics of the game actively work against you as the player. Monster Hunter is hard because every single fight involves you fighting a dinosaur dragon with a teensy tiny dagger and your cat. Oh, and there's a time limit for some reason. That said, don't let the difficulty dissuade you. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's inaccessible. There's a difference, and I promise if you play it, you will notice. So let's break down this review with my usual metrics: gameplay, story, and graphics. And today, we'll start with story. Spoiler alert, this is going to be a brief recap of the story. In Monster Hunter Rise, you are a monster hunter, or one who hunts monsters. Occasionally, people need monsters hunted, and you're the one that hunts them. There's some new NPCs, and they tell you which monsters that you should hunt. But this isn't a normal monster hunter. Sometimes the monsters hunt the monster hunters, and you need to defend against them with other monster hunters. Yeah, okay, the story is kind of dumb. There's less than there was in Monster Hunter World, and quite frankly, I don't even know why they bother putting a story in these games. It's somewhat better without one. Basically, you live in a village, and you hunt monsters to clear trade pathways and to protect against incoming waves of attacks, and Magna Malo is rising, and that's kind of where I checked out. It works, it's just kind of not necessary. Just like the game, let's skip the story and move on to gameplay. And hot diggity damn, this is my favorite Monster Hunter game in terms of gameplay. Since I'm really bad at these games, I'm a dual blades main, and let me tell you, they made using them fluid this time around. A good hunt should feel a lot like a dance, where the player memorizes and anticipates the movements of the monsters and skirts around attacks with a perfect precision. Understanding that balance is what turns you into a great player and makes the game feel like an artful experience as opposed to a button-mashing nightmare. This game is especially unique thanks to the focus on vertical combat. The wire bugs introduced in this entry can be used to zip around anywhere and everywhere, and as a result, you can have some encounters that have absolutely staggering levels of height. Honestly, a lot of the fun that I've had is just seeing where I can explore with the quasi-grappling hook they've given me. It is really cool. Wire bugs also shake up combat a little bit and give the player an additional optional strategy. While they're primarily designed for maneuverability, the glowing little wisps can be used to deal heavy blows that weaken a monster and make it more easily mounted, for a price. Using these moves make your wire bugs recharge at a super slow rate, which can lead to an early grave depending on what you're fighting. So as a result, you are forced to constantly make split-second decisions that will have long-lasting consequences while on a hunt. Speaking more about mounting this time around, mounting is still around in Monster Hunter Rise, but for the first time in this game series, it is drastically different. Unlike previous entries, you don't just jump on the back of a monster to stab it repeatedly. Instead, you hop on the back of the monster to control it like a marionette. If there's a turf war between two monsters, which happens on almost every hunt, you can control one monster to attack another, getting off some massive damage and breaking additional parts for you to collect. If there is no turf war going on, you can then do what's called launching the monster, where you can repeatedly bash them into a wall or a large stone or whatever can be in their way until you stun them for a little bit, allowing you to get off some massive damage and really good combos. Honestly, this is the mechanic that I am probably most conflicted about. I really enjoy it, and I do think it's cool, but in my time playing, I've been in way too many turf wars. I feel like that if this was a rarer occurrence, I would be infinitely more comfortable, but right now I usually encounter sometimes up to 2 turf wars per hunt, which devalues some of the momentum of the experience. I will say that if the overabundance of turf wars and monster riding takes away momentum, the soundtrack puts it right back in its place. Orchestral scores rise and crash when in combat in themes that don't necessarily inspire you, but help portray the gravity of the situation. You don't feel like Hercules fighting Cerberus. Instead, you feel like a normal dude who had better kill this giant 3-headed beast if you want to live, and damn if that's not good. One of the coolest things about the soundtrack, though, is that sometimes the game knows to shut up. Intensity can't just be ramped forever, otherwise it would get boring and stale. When the monster inevitably runs away to another area, the game's soundtrack drops. You're then left with just ambient noise, and you realize this is a world you're living in. It's relieving since you have time to now sharpen your weapons and eat rations, but it also helps the environments feel more realistic and realized. It doesn't feel like so many other games like you're in a level. Instead, it feels like you're in an environment, or you're in a world. So many other games have amazing sound when it comes to levels. In a game like Super Mario Galaxy, the score is used to give each level a sense of place. However, in this game, not having a score makes each level feel like a real place, if that makes sense. The one real critique I have is that this game is noticeably easier than past entries. I didn't do the village quests for the first 30 hours of my gameplay because I didn't realize there was a difference between hub and village, and the hub quests were harder variants of the same hunts. And even then, I didn't feel the same level of challenge that I'm used to. It could be that my playstyle just really suits the new updated game design, but I feel like some of the intensity definitely got ramped back a little bit. That said, literally none of that matters for this one reason: Magna Malo. The Magna Malo fight is the greatest hunt that I have ever done, hands down. If the entire game was just preparing and departing on this one hunt, it would be worth every penny. Luckily, there's a whole ass game attached too. Magna Malo moves perfectly. He's got the right amount of dexterity combined with the sheer power his form portrays. His physical attacks have the absolute perfect weight to them, and his magical attacks, hot damn, his magical attacks are cool. New to this game is a status called Hellfire Blight, which is the coolest term I have ever heard. And how do you get that? By getting hit with the literal hellfire Magna Malo produces. As you fight, more and more hellfire seeps from his scales, and his rage and intensity builds, and when you have him fighting not just to survive but to kill you, his form overflows with a rushing spout of purple flame, and BAM! He blows up. I love this fight. It's so good. Magna Malo beat me 6 times before I took him down, and before him I hadn't failed a single quest. But each time I lost, it felt right. I didn't think it was unfair or that the game messed with me. Instead, I feel like I fought against a titan and lost, but that I was determined to be his greatest worthy opponent. Now let's talk a little bit about the visuals. I found some secret footage of how Capcom made this game run on Switch, and let me tell you, this game is beautiful as a result. I have no idea how this plays on Switch. It shouldn't. Hell, Breath of the Wild had some frame rate issues, but somehow Rise is just completely flawless. I have been pushing this game to its limits, and I have yet to see one frame rate drop or resolution dip. The colors are incredibly vibrant. The environments have no pop-in, and new monsters are some of the most visually interesting in the series. I am at a loss for words for how pretty this game is. I'm sorry, it's just better than World. There's so much I could say about this. I could gloat about this for hours if I wanted, but for the sake of keeping this video watchable, I'll go ahead and give you my score. This game is a 5 out of 5 for me. It is a titan in one of my favorite series, and I cannot recommend it enough. As of the time I'm writing this, the game has been out for under a month and is already the 15th best-selling Switch game. For reference, it is already beaten Link's Awakening, Fire Emblem Three Houses, ARMS, Mario Rabbids, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, all of which were considered commercial successes. I genuinely hope this keeps on climbing the ranks and becomes one of the Switch's best-selling games. Also, please, 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 Nintendo, put something from this game in Smash. I would personally love if Magna Malo made an appearance, or at least a hunter controlling a monster. It would be so cool and unique, and I just want it to happen. I hope more than anything, you are also playing this game, and if you are, please let me know down below what you think of it. If you liked this video, please be sure to leave a like down below, and like we always say here on the channel, I hope to see you around sometime.